Basically because a group of us knew a girl who got raped, and we started to think about it and talk about it, a group of fathers, and we thought that there wasn't enough happening to prevent it.
The men formed a group called Fathers for Preventing Sexual Violence. Each week they take time off from their normal jobs and visit schools where they speak to Year 9 boys about sexual assault.
Basically we try and talk as fathers rather than as teachers or priests or policemen or somebody, and we try and focus it on what are you going to do when you're with a girl to make sure you don't rape somebody, and talk about the effects that it really has on people so that it gets out of this sort of fantasy realm of, you see it on TV and it's all remote. We try and talk about it in real life.
And in real life, the statistics are frightening. According to figures, 1 in every 3 girls will experience some form of sexual assault before they're 18. For boys, it's 1 in every 7.
I just thought it was girls, but when the guys were talking about it, I found out it was.
As well as dealing with who's most at risk, the workshops also examine what happens to a person after they've been raped and the long-term emotional turmoil they go through.
Makes you think about some things.
The group hopes to gain the support of more fathers to bring the message of preventing sexual assault to all schools. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
One Mile Beach and all is quiet. Today, that is, the fish aren't running. The mullet run has traditionally provided a spectacle for tourists and a livelihood for fishing families. But it's a bumper season this year, and according to the Department of Fisheries, an extra 50 fishing crews have moved into the area. Caravan park managers Colleen and Bill Humble say 1 Mile Beach has been overrun with tractors, trucks, backhoes and fishermen equipped with mobile phones moving in for the catch. They say holiday makers are cancelling bookings when they see what's become of the usually quiet beach.
The whole beach was in one section was virtually closed off.
Well, I don't think we're causing any problem. You're beach and that, and you've got to have your vehicles on the beach. And when we have a shot, all the residents come over and help us and, look on.
George Payne and his family have been hauling nets along the beaches for generations. This year they've joined forces with teams from Queensland and the North Coast. On a good day they can pull 40 tonnes of mullet. The catch is trucked to Queensland for processing.
Yeah, there's more money in the game now than there was years ago. So when my dad and all the grandfathers and that used to fish, it's a money game now with the row and that, and exporting the row.
The fishermen are working within regulations, but authorities are keeping lookout.
I think it's important that the fishermen maintain a good rapport with the community here in particular. It's in their own interest to present a good image of their industry.
The team was named around midday, but Adrian Brunker didn't know he'd been picked until he turned up for training just over an hour ago.
I was just over doing my weights and Mark Sargent came up to me and said, "You're in the side," and I thought he'd shake my hand for some other reason, but he said, "You're in the state side," and I just about dropped the weight on my head.
Brunker has been working hard on his kicking after some hot and cold performances early this season, but the Queensland selectors obviously have faith in him because they've pencilled him in as kicker.
When I took over the role from John Schuster's, it gave me an extra link to try and get into the Queensland side, and if I'm going to be used as a kicker, I'll be very happy.
Brunker will go into camp with the rest of the Queensland side on Wednesday.
Five rugby league players from the area have made the State of Origin series. Jason Pollack and Warren Spink represented Australia in soccer, and a host of sailors have picked up national titles from 505s right through to sailboards. Tracy Moonen and Veronica Lee excelled in bodybuilding and beach sprinting respectively, while Lisa Ryan picked up an Aussie crown for wave skiing. And Jason Stoltenberg, Mark Curry and Paul Henderson have reached the top in their chosen sports. It's the 15th year of the NBN St George Sports Star of the Year.
Residents of Llewellyn Street, Merriweather, were woken by the sound of breaking glass just after 2 o'clock. A stolen car was being used as a battering ram on the front door of the home hardware store. It took 2 goes to break it down. June Coos, who works in the shop and lives nearby, was straight on the phone to the police.
It was just so quick that we all we saw was the men, dressed in their dark clothes, and as soon as the alarm went off, they were gone. It was just so quick.
2 thieves kicked in a glass case and stole a number of power tools, including Makita drills and bench grinders, worth several $1,000s. The stolen car was later found abandoned at Adamstown. Newcastle detectives have interviewed several people in relation to the raid. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
This 5-hectare parcel of land at Swan Bay has been the key to paradise for 4 generations of prominent Port Stephens oyster-growing family, the Moffats.
My grandfather started here 100 years ago, and I'm very proud. He started as a fisherman. He dabbled with the oysters, and my father was the real oyster man.
But now this century-old secret is about to be cracked. Lloyd Moffat is opening up his family allotment to a development that combines the area's fishing past with people's desire for a future holiday place in the sun.
It's a traditional fisherman's village. 46 separate blocks of land on which we're going to build 46 separate cabins. Each of those cabins will be traditional, older type fisherman style cabins. Along with the major part of the development will be swimming pool, tennis courts and other luxuries.
Work has already begun on the site to build the waterfront bungalows, and the project is expected to be completed by February. While Mr Moffat is excited about the development, he's also loath to share his private paradise with the rest of the world.
I'd like to keep it to myself, but at the same time, really the people should be able to come with. So one of the last parts of Port Stephens left where it's not developed and we're able to do it genuinely and keep it as a real fisher village.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Once you've dialed in where you want to go and fed the machine the fare, it takes just seconds to spit out a ticket. Barry Hoare opted for a $3 pensioner concession pass. It's good for a day's travel on trains, buses and ferries. The machines, which have been installed at Broadmeadow and Newcastle, are part of the government's plan, which they say will put railway services on par with the best in the world over the next 5 years. The system could save millions of dollars preventing fare evasions, as travellers will soon have to pass through automatic turnstiles on reaching their destinations. The machines haven't replaced people. Guides will be on hand for introductory demonstrations, and CityRail's Group General Manager Rob Schwarzer guarantees that stations will remain staffed.
Introducing these machines will not result in shutting stations. We're going to retain the hours that the station is staffed now will be retained irrespective of the installation of the equipment.
Because obviously some was more choice.
And was there anything in there? And what the students are working on assignments at the moment? Or important ones?
Assignment coming up towards the end of the semester.
Charlene is one of 14,500 students at Newcastle Uni concerned about personal safety. But now, with a little help, she's decided to take a positive step in deterring an attacker. It's an idea encouraged and promoted by the Students' Association.
If there is a difficulty that does arise, they have the power to deter an attacker and to call for help.
This small cylinder, known as a screamer, is a pressure pack designed to sound an alarm at a piercing 115 decibels. The device has a working life of around 30 screams. At $15, it's a small price to pay for a greater sense of security.
It can be used for any student, women's students in particular, because screaming and yelling sometimes isn't taken notice of. So with something like this, which is a very high-pitched, high-decibel sound, then someone is definitely going to notice, and it's either going to deter an attacker or it's going to bring people to come to help you.
Australia is now a leading producer of minerals in world markets, but the growth has revealed a lack of trained mineral economists. While there's internationally respected authorities in mining and economics, we've been without the expertise of combined specialists. But that's about to change.
What we wanted to do was to take the graduates from the physical side and give them a 12 master's degree in economics. Make them understand the laws of supply and demand, the macro scene, what happens internationally.
Max Roberts has 40 years' experience in the mining industry. He's the chairman of the new Australian Centre for Mineral and Energy Economics based at the University of Newcastle. Meeting for the first time today, he was joined by 13 other advisors representing the country's top mining and financial companies as well as government sectors. The committee's job is to oversee the centre's operations. Director Professor Tim Considine has been busy laying foundations.
I spent the past couple of weeks travelling around the country, visiting mines, and everyone I spoke with expressed a great deal of enthusiasm and interest in the idea of the centre.
With the course beginning next year, Professor Considine believes it won't be long before the centre's success is known.
I hope that we will have a centre for excellence in mineral economics that will be recognised not only in Australia but worldwide.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Motocross is alive and kicking on the North Coast. Former Supercross champ Coffs Harbour's Glenn Poole was a standout in the 250 class in A and B grade. But it wasn't just the big guys stealing the show. In the 8 to 12 year age group, Kobe Wooderson was impressive on his 60cc bike. Christian Horwood won the C grade 125 class. Riders looking for points leading up to grand final time in October. This is the tournament the high flyers are after. Bowlers from Burleigh Heads in the north and Sydney in the south shooting for the cash. Quality bowlers like Port Macquarie's Keith Caddy hoping to make the cut-off for the top 20 in the Skins final in August. The series has been running along the north coast, a winner from each area in line for the money. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The competition attracted 50 contestants from across Australia, eager for the $2,000 in prize money and the match experience for the coming state championships. Coffs Harbour RSL was the venue for the snooker hotshots, and the action warmed up today after preliminary rounds yesterday. One of the standouts was 18-year-old Scott Smith of Brisbane, who shot the highest break of the tournament with 65. Scott and his mate Adrian Ashford will leave for England soon to have a crack at the professional circuit. Wayne Gibb was the highest placed competitor from the Coffs Harbour locals. For 2 days they've been slogging it out in a round-robin competition. The championships are for under-19s. However, Newcastle's Rob Powell is only 14 years old and has been one of the form pitchers. Lake Macquarie's Rebecca Farron was another to stand out. It shouldn't have been a surprise though, because Rebecca is part of the Australian development team. Occasionally the softball was interrupted by rain, but at Raymond Terrace the wind was more of a problem. It chopped up the Williams River, making it hard for competitors in the national barefoot titles. In some heats, no one was even able to finish. And at Catherine Hill Bay, the stiff southerly made for atrocious conditions in the Hunter surfing titles.
Local Vietnam veterans have established the Memorial Grove to the north of Muswellbrook. Each of the 519 trees represents a fallen Australian serviceman. 19 Hunter servicemen died in South Vietnam. A colour party from the 3rd Battalion Royal Australian Regiment participated along with a 100-man Guard of Honour from the Singleton Infantry Centre and the Hunter River Lancers. High-ranking military staff and Shire dignitaries attended the dedication service.
It seemed like an omen for the night. Everett Stevens caught for an uncharacteristic travel in the first few minutes. It was probably the most physical game the Falcons have played all year. Grant Kruger was belted from pillar to post. No matter how many times he was bowled over, he always came back, putting his body on the line. However, while the big boys were slogging it out, Peter Harvey was keeping the side in touch. Mike Mitchell may have been the bad guy as far as the Falcons were concerned, but the Gold Coast crowd lifted him to basket after basket. And with seconds to go, he wrapped up the game. Without a doubt, Craig Peavy and Justin Roussel's fight stole the night. The two really worked each other over until they drew blood. And with claret streaming from his own cuts, Peavy threw a headbutt that didn't miss Roussel's eye.
My trainer said just before the 5th round, he said, "That's it, Craig's going to stop the fight." And I knew it was going to be over. That's the only reason I attacked him in the last round, and it only would have been a matter of time before they stopped the fight.
And stop it they did, the referee instantly disqualifying Peavy. The Newcastle boy refused to leave the ring, claiming the decision was unjust.
He was headbutting me during the whole fight, and if I did headbutt him in that last round, maybe he deserved it.
Peavy believes Roussel's camp had planned all along to...
Dirty fighter, he knew the only way he could fight me was upset me and stick his face like in my face and just annoy me, and he done it.
Roussel says he's shocked at Peavy's claims.
I've never done anything dirty in my career, and Craig Peavy was shortening stride, and I think he was looking for a way out, and that was his way out. He done with his head what he didn't have the heart or the ability to do with his hands, and I'm looking forward to going back to Newcastle in 6 weeks and turning Craig Peavy inside out, so I hope he's watching this.
council found out on Friday that Goodman Fielders had refused Southern Cross's application for plant and equipment to establish the snack food factory. It was the final blow in a 4-year battle to bring the industry to town. Now council is taking steps to finalise ownership of the building, which they've invested $1.2 million in.
As soon as the property is technically in the council's name, it will immediately invite expressions of interest for the use of the building.
Already 3 preliminary expressions of interest have been received, and while council is keen to see it used by industry to generate employment, it's keeping its options open. An indoor sports centre is one possibility.
Three weeks ago, Hunter Water's controversial Burwood Beach secondary treatment plant came back online after lying dormant for months. But along with the plant, the sewage odours have returned, wafting over the hill and up the noses of Merriweather Heights residents and the 180 students at the local public school.
It gets to a stage where you can't stand to be outside, and these kids are playing in playground. They've got no other alternative but to breathe in that air.
Mrs. Garner believes the odours are more than just offensive. She says the number of students falling sick has jumped in the past few weeks.
Noticed a definite increase in the number of cases of nausea and vomiting, headaches, sore throats, chest complaints.
We spend a lot of money and effort down there, and it gives us no pleasure at all for there to be smells. I can assure you we're doing everything we can to address the question.
To combat the odours, the corporation is gradually bringing the plant up to capacity and has enlisted the help of 15 residents to monitor the smells. But some say Hunter Water isn't doing enough.
Certainly should be investigated, I believe, by the health department, and the quality of air is, well, there is no quality, it's just abysmal when those awful smells come.
Despite residents' calls for independent air monitoring, the Environment Protection Authority says it has no plans of conducting any tests. Brian Gilligan from the EPA says the odour problem seems to be more of a nuisance matter than a risk to public health. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
It's a sport that's been developed from the streets, hockey on rollerblades. At first glance it looks like ice hockey. Players use long sticks and wear plenty of body padding. And although it's not supposed to be a body contact sport, you can see why they need the protective gear. And with the hard knocks comes the occasional frayed temper.
They like a bit of the biff, but it's the referees try to cut down on it. But
Hornets in the white uniforms are one of the latest teams to join the State League, but are by far the most improved. They consistently whip the Sydney teams and have been equal leaders of the competition. The sport is growing every day and attracting kids who are sick of just rollerblading backwards and forwards.
a couple of years it'll be bigger than roller hockey, I'd say, just because with roller hockey you play on skates, and with blade hockey you play on blades, and a lot of kids can play out in the road.
The Hornets play at the Broadmeadows skating rink every Sunday.
This is the house in Havelock Street, Mayfield, where the Hunter Training Centre for Blind and Visually Impaired People will be established. It was donated to the Royal Blind Society by the Mayfield Pensioners Cooperative. While it's a roof and 4 walls, it needs a lot of work. Newcastle Council has given the Society $50,000 to begin preliminary renovations, but $200,000 is still needed. Well, it was this afternoon when Lord Mayor John McNaughton launched the appeal at the Business Club meeting. However, within minutes, BHP had pledged their support.
And I'd like to announce that we're going to make a $30,000 donation to commence this appeal.
Judith Hughes is coordinating the appeal and believes it's a service which is desperately needed for the 2,500 visually impaired people in the region.
Going to offer a wide range of services, vocational rehabilitation and just ordinary living skills that are required by people who have a vision impairment.
Around 8 last night, Janet Holt's car veered off Wangi Road and wrapped around a tree. She was pinned in the car for 90 minutes. The twisted vehicle was prised open by members of the Cooranbong SES, police and ambulance officers. Throughout her ordeal, the woman was comforted by rescuers. Suffering leg, pelvis and abdominal injuries, she was airlifted to the John Hunter Hospital in a serious condition. During the rescue operation, the helicopter crew was alerted that an aircraft may have crashed into the lake. Residents had spotted a low-flying plane and flares. The helicopter and a police launch made sweeps of the area last night and this morning, but failed to turn up any trace of a plane crash.
Last year's runner-up, Julie Swanson, yesterday broke the course record with 74 off the stick at Nelson Bay. Today she was just as keen to set another record and bring home the title to her Raymond Terrace club. Hot on her heels was Toronto's Gail Gannon. The greens of the Newcastle course were today running super fast, creating all sorts of challenges. Cessnock's Dale Linnertson is only 22 years old and already a serious contender for senior titles. Katrina Skinner from East Maitland is also one of the area's young up-and-coming stars. 300 ladies headed to Newcastle for the tournament, some from as far away as Mullumbimby, Tenterfield and Kiama. Tomorrow the ladies will go around again, this time in the Merriweather foursomes.
For nearly 200 gifted students, classes are continuing at the All Saints College, the weekend school a first for Maitland's Catholic education system. Senior primary students are mixing with their junior high school peers, all are gaining some finer points in a diverse range of subjects from science to the arts.
Giftedness doesn't discriminate against any sort of economic or cultural barriers. We have students here from all walks of life.
Organiser Frank Doyle says for too long policies have focused on the disadvantaged student while the gifted has been overlooked.
They're getting left behind really. It's a bit of support for them, just a little bit more attention, and that in itself brings out more skill. sets them more challenges.
About 50 turned up at Busybody's gym to make their bodies busy. Marcus taught the North Coast finest aerobics instructors the latest moves in what is one of the fastest growing sports in Australia.
Turn into a tricep extension and push down from the shoulder. So now we're in the down low. Increase the range of motion.
The one-off visit was hailed as a success by organisers and the instructors. More than 20 teams from around the state lined up on bowling greens throughout Newcastle and Lake Macquarie to contest the playoffs in grades 1 through to 7. Valentine Club played host to the first grade clash between Cahibah in the blue and Coffs Harbour Club Park Beach. Each side has 12 bowlers divided into 3 teams. They compete on 3 separate rinks. Cahibah took an early lead. With the help of skipper Darby Ross, a former Australian captain, Cahibah were ahead 14-11 after the 13th end. However, Park Beach skipper Nifty Neville Snellgrove was doing his best to keep Cahibah honest. Cahibah ended up the winners and now play Narrabri tomorrow, while in Grade 3, South Tamworth is up against Charlestown. In Grade 6, Armidale Ex-Services will play Burwood Colliery, and in the junior singles, Doug Newton from Walgett goes head-to-head with Merryweather's Martin Ball. It was a who's who of the sporting world that gathered at the Newcastle Leagues Club for the second induction of legends. 25 recipients will join 20 others in the Hunter Region's Sporting Hall of Fame, soon to be established at the Newcastle Region Museum. For June Bevan, her 12 Australian titles and contribution to the game of badminton crowned her Queen of the Court and secured her selection.
I think a lot of dedication. If you want to be a top player, you've got to dedicate yourself a lot, and I had a lot of determination, and I suppose that got me through, and I had a wonderful family behind me. So,
cricketer Gary Gilmore, a legend on the field, playing in no less than 38 Sheffield Shield and 15 Test matches. And for rugby union stalwart Cyril Burke, who represented Australia in 11 consecutive seasons, today's induction represents yet another sporting achievement in an unforgettable career.
Back in my day, to get into the Australian team, you nearly had to move to Sydney, but I'm so pleased to be recognised here because I was able to do it from staying in Newcastle.